Hello, everybody. I want to I want to share a testimony. I used to call it my testimony, and I'm deeply sorry for that because that's not true. It's my father's testimony. My father who is in heaven. Because he's responsible for me being able to do this, to be able to share this. When I was very young, I suffered some abuses, and it caused me to have a condition known as PTSD, early childhood onset PTSD. And my way of dealing with the extreme anxiety that caused and the mental issues that causes was by self-medicating. I discovered the consumption of alcohol when I was about 12 years old, actually. I didn't consume very much, not enough to get drunk, but I found out that if I took one or two just little drinks of beer, the extreme anxiety that I suffered from would ease off. And the only way I could get beer was by stealing it from the convenience store down the street. But one can of beer would last me a couple of weeks. I kept it stashed in a bush outside of the side of my parents' house. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I had real issues with alcohol for a long time. And I finally was able to stay sober long enough that DUI and points came off of my driving record. One afternoon in the middle of August, I'm out looking for a job. I had gone and applied at a place, and they had actually hired me. I was on my way back to Irving, Texas, where myself and my wife lived, and I saw the sign for this limousine service that I had seen advertised that they were hiring chauffeurs. And dawned on me, hey, that's that limousine place I saw that was hiring chauffeurs. And I thought, I'm going to go back and go in there and see if I can't catch an eye and look at some of those cars. I had never actually been inside of a limousine before in my life. I'm, 33, 34 years old. And so I turned around, I went back, and I walked through the front door, and the dispatcher was there, and she turns and said, hi, I'll be with you in just a second. And she finishes her conversation on the phone. She says, can I help you? And I said, well, I saw your ad in the paper for the looking for shows. Oh, yeah, sure. Here you go. And hands me an application. She says, just have a seat there in the lobby. Fill this out. I sat down, I filled it out. Just about the time I'm signing it, finishing my signature, I see a car pull up through the doorway in front of their office and garage there. And I get up and start to hand her the application. And this man walks through the door, and she goes, oh, hey, Scott, here, this man's applying for the chauffeur's job. And I'm like, oh, crap, I wonder, that's what I'm thinking. And he takes my application, looks at it. Yeah, come on in my office. I follow him into his office. I sit down. He starts asking me, about myself. If I'd ever been arrested was one of the questions. Yeah, I said, yeah, unfortunately, a few times. Really, what for? I said, well, DUI. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. He said, how's that going? I said, well, I don't really drink anymore, so, you know. So that was the motivation to get me to quit drinking, I guess. So I guess it's going the way it should be going. He says, you have any points on your driving record? I said, no, actually, for the first time since I was 16, as of 2 or 3 months ago, I've got 0 points. And he goes, hang on just a second. And he goes, hollers at her name. I can't remember her name, but says, can you run records and driving on hand? She goes, already on it. And she comes to the door, hands it to him. He looks at it, goes, yeah, 0 points. And he starts telling me about being a chauffeur, what all it entails, making sure the cars are set up properly and nice and clean, and being willing to get out and chamois the car off if you have it washed and, and all that kind of stuff. He said, image is everything in this business. He goes, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what it's all actually about, is in limousines. He said most of our work is actually done in sedans. We do, just predominantly one-way transfers, people to and from the airport or driving them around town for business meetings, that kind of stuff. I said, sir, I got to tell you something. I'm not from Dallas. Yeah, I see that. I said, I barely know the highway system. He goes, well, do you know the highway system fairly well? And I said, yeah, I actually do know the highway system pretty good. He goes, yeah, that's good enough. He goes, we have a thing we use called a Maps Co. Are you familiar? I said, no, sir. And he says, it's actually a book that's about an inch thick of all the streets. And it's like a chain reference deal. And you can get anywhere you need to go if you're good at following maps. And I said, well, I'm actually really good at following maps. He said, nah, you're covered. He said, not only that, we have Traxit on our cars. You know what that is? I said, no. He goes, we can watch the car you're in going down the road within about 5 to 10 feet of where your car actually is on our computer screen out here. We can tell how fast you're going. We can tell you if the radio's on, what the volume is. It's quite a deal. It costs about $3,000 a month for each car we have to have it at that level of service. But we got to have it for security. So he says, we got you covered. If we see you getting lost, we'll call you on a cell phone. We'll give you a cell phone to use while you're at work. Really? He goes, yeah, you don't even worry about that. We got you covered on that. And anyway, so he hires me. That was on Friday afternoon. On Sunday, I'm sent to go pick up my first person ever driving a limousine. And I meticulously went through that car. I even took a brush that they give you for brushing stuff out of the seats or the floorboard or whatever. I made sure all the nap of the plush carpet in the back of that super stretch limousine was all laying the same direction. I mean, I made sure it was absolutely right. Had the ice set up in the little ice bins with, they had a list of different types of soda they wanted. And anyway, I set the car up correctly. I waited at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, DFW Airport, drove around the Cloverleaf, I don't know, 3 or 4 times till I could get the front spot right by the door at the terminal. Go in, meet the client. It was a man and his wife. and their two young daughters and their two young daughters' little friends. And I get them out and get them in the car. They had 4 little carry-on bags, the little girls, people of that income level typically don't check luggage. They send it ahead, UPS or FedEx or whatever. Anyway, and the divider is rolled down, and I say to the back of the car, I can't really see into the back of the car because really dark tinted windows and the car is all black anyway. I said, are we all set and ready to go? And John, the man, he says, yes, sir, let's roll. I said, okay. I put the car in drive. And he rolls the divider up. And I get to the bottom of the clover leaves that go around and circle and go up to where the terminals are, the various terminals at DFW Airport. And the divider rolls down. He goes, Dan, is it Dan, right? I said, yes, sir. He says, we can't get the radio or the lights to come on back here. And I'm like, oh, crud. I don't know, sir. Possibly a fuse or something came loose under the hood. I'm actually a real good mechanic. I'd be glad to stop and check and see if I can fix it right quick. And he goes, nope, let's just go on. And he rolls the divider up. You get out of the north side of DFW Airport to get up on the highway there, Highway 114, if you're familiar with that area. And the divider rolls down again. Dan? Yes, sir. We can't get anything to come on back here. Not the lights, radio, not the air conditioner. We can't even get the windows to roll down. And I went, oh, crud. Reached up and turned the master power switch on to the back of the car. And of course, the whole back end of the car boom, comes to life. Lights come on and everything. While I was reaching up for that switch, I realized I had forgotten to turn the power on to the back of the car. 105-degree weather. Bright, sunshiny day, black car, sitting out in the sun for 30 minutes probably when I went in to wait for him at the gate. I got no idea who this guy really is. And when the power came on, I'm so sorry. Well, I'm reaching up for that switch. The thought came over my head, just tell him the switch stuck. Scott told you when he hired you, if you make a mistake, you're fired. Period. No room for problems in this business. And when I hit that switch, something came over me. Don't lie. So I admitted that it was my fault, with the 100% understanding that I would be fired. Period. This is how Scott put it to me. He said, only one rule in this business for drivers. Don't make a mistake. Don't screw up. If you do, you're fired immediately. No ifs, ands, maybes, buts about it. There's just no room for mistakes with the type of clientele we drive. We have as clients, I think is what he said. Can you handle that obligation? I said, I believe I can. Yes, sir. He says, all right. Well, welcome aboard. Anyway, 2 days later, I'm driving. I've got his permission to use his name here, by the way. John Bickle, the head of Bickle and Brewer law firm. At that time, back in 1993, John Bickle was preeminently the most powerful corporate litigation attorney on planet Earth. Anyway, all the power came on. I apologized a couple of times. He says, "Oh, don't worry about it. We're good now." And he rolls the divider up all the way to his house. Some house, I'll tell you. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm fired. Oh, well. I was looking for a job 2 days ago, you know. Get him out of the car, and his wife and the 4 little girls go running on in the house, still sopping wet from sweat. I open the trunk, and John reaches in and grabs a couple of the little carry-on bags that the little girls had. "That's all right, I'll get them." "Oh, I don't mind." Okay, you know. And I got the other 2. Okay, "Just put them down right here. I said, we'll take care of them." I set them down. I said, "Well, you have a good day." And he goes, He follows me back out the door of the house, back door of the house. And I noticed he's following me back. I said, "Sir, John, Mr. Bickle, I'm so sorry about that." He goes, "No, we're good, man. Don't worry about it." He said, "We're good." I said, "No." I said, "Really, I'm so sorry." He said, "I said we're good. I'm not lying to you." He reaches in his pocket and pulls out $100 bill. He says, "Here you go." I'm like, "Whoa, no, that's not right. That's not necessary." And he goes, "Here." And he kind of grabs at my hand and says, "Take this." He says, "Go buy your wife something nice." I'm like, wow. I kind of took it out of his hand. And I said, "How did you know I was married?" And he goes, "Oh, well, Scott told me he was sending a new guy after me, so I, of course, asked about you." I said, "Well, thank you very much." I said, "I don't know what to tell you." And he said, "You just did. You said thank you. Healthy response." He said, "Have a good day." I said, "Well, you have a blessed day too, sir." He said, "All right, thanks." I get in the car. I drive all the way back from Turtle Creek, Dallas, very posh neighborhood in Dallas, to Grapevine, Texas, where the shop was. And it's a good 25-minute drive, I guess, if I remember correctly. And all the way there, I'm like, dang it. Oh, well, I was looking for a job 2 days ago. When I found this one, I'll just be looking for a job again. I go in, I park the car. The dispatcher's there. Nobody else is there. I walk up to the window and hand her the keys. She goes, "How'd everything go?" I was like, "Yeah, all right, I guess." I just turned around and walked out. She's like, "Oh." I went home. And next morning, the phone rings at 7:30 in the morning. I picked the phone up. "Hello? Is this Dan?" "Yes." I recognized voice. It was Scott, the owner of the limousine service. "Are you busy?" "No, sir." Says, "Can you come in and talk to me?" Said, "Sure, I'll be there in a few minutes, Scott." He's "All right." Hangs the phone up. "All right, see you in a few," I think he said. So I put my suit and tie on, thinking I'm going to be looking for a job, so I might as well get ready to go look for a job, you know. And I walk in, he's standing there just inside the front door, and he's got this look on his face. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, Scott, I know." He goes, come on in my office. Have a seat, have a seat." He goes around, gets behind his desk, and he sits down, which I'm going to do because I've got some physical issues. He sits down, he goes, "So, what happened with Bickle yesterday?" And I said, "Well," I told him I forgot to turn the power on to the car. They were all completely sweated out Every stitch of clothing on him was soaked in sweat. He goes, nah, something more than that happened. I said, no, that's it, Scott. I mean, truthfully. Is really that's all that happened? I said, yeah, I'm not lying to you. He goes, wow. He says, well, he called here this morning himself. You know who that is, don't you? And I said, no, sir, I really don't. I said, some guy with a whole lot of money, judging from the size of his house. And he says, yeah, he's got a lot of money, all right. He says, he's the head of Bickle and Brewer law firm that handles all of the Dallas Cowboys stuff and all of Fox Sports stuff, pretty much, and for that matter, a bulk of Fox Network stuff. He's the most powerful corporate litigation attorney on the planet. I'm like, oh, wow. You know? He goes, here, I'll just cut to the chase and tell you what he said. Scott goes, he calls and he says, hello, can I speak to Scott Tinkham, please? I said, this is Scott. And he goes, Scott, that man you sent after me yesterday, Dan, I think his name was. Scott says, yeah. He says, absolutely no one ever, under any circumstances, is to ever drive anyone with Bickle and Brewer or associated with Bickle and Brewer or the Dallas Cowboys or associated with them or Fox Networks in any capacity or associated with Fox Networks, except Dan, unless he's dead or in the hospital. Is that understood? And I'm like, Scott says, yes, sir. And he hung up. And I'm, huh? said, really? And he goes, yeah, man. He goes, I said, why? Why would he do that after what happened? He goes, I guess your honesty really impressed him because, you know, being in the business he's in, he probably doesn't run across a whole lot of people that are brutally honest about things. I said, well, I got to tell you something. I used to have a big issue with honesty, actually. Some of the stuff I dealt with growing up. He goes, well, apparently that's in your past now, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, well, I hope you're ready. I said, I thought I was coming in to get fired. He goes, no, man. He said, you're going to be driving your tail off. We do a lot of work for the Dallas Cowboys and Fox Networks and Bickle and Brewer, for that matter. He goes, you're going to be driving your tail off. Can you handle it? I said, I'll do the best job I possibly can. He goes, well, attitude's everything in this business, kind of. I said, yeah, I guess so. And he goes, you really didn't know who he was? And I said, no. He goes, well, he's kind of responsible for us being in business. He's like good friends with my dad, I guess, but I really haven't talked to him but just a few times, 2 or 3 times. He's the one that set this whole thing up. I said, did you know we're the official limo service of the Dallas Cowboys? Is how we're advertised and stuff? I said, no, you're kidding. He goes, yeah. You didn't know that? I said, no, I didn't. He goes, yeah, man, you're going to meet some amazing people working here. I did. I'm not going to go into that, but just know that every day, very few exceptions over the next 2.5 years, did I go a day working that I didn't have at least one celebrity in a car with me. And it was almost always sedans. Very, very rarely did we do limo service for people. In fact, most of the limo service we did was for like prom kids and that kind of stuff. Celebrities don't typically ride in limousines. They don't want to draw much attention to themselves. But yeah, the list of celebrities is mind-boggling. Anyway, I worked for them for about 2.5 years. Then another guy recruited me, actually, to go to work for him because I had become the most preferred chauffeur in Texas, and for that matter, probably in the United States. All because of one thing. Anyway, I went to work for this guy that did private service, wasn't advertised at all, but because of who his family was, he actually had a client list that was the absolute wealthiest people on this planet. Give you an example. One of the people I drove while I was driving him was the Sheikh of Saudi Arabia, King Hussein, not Saddam Hussein, King Hussein's firstborn son. That man's wealth makes Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all the other billionaires in the United States all added together makes that big lump of money seem like chump change. Seriously. Hey, King, if you happen to see this, I like your style, man. When I picked him and another driver drove his wife to Galleria Mall, I drove him to a business meeting. He was dressed in this frumpy, double knit, kind of ragtag suit. Seriously. Wealthiest man on the planet. And his wife was in this kind of not fancy, just regular old dress, full-length dress. That's the way he traveled back then, was incognito. No security whatsoever. A multi-trillionaire with a T multiple times. That's the way he traveled. I like your style, man. Really do. I don't really know much about you. I haven't followed you. Wouldn't have any reason to, you know. But while I was working for that service, the last person I drove, I quit that business, and I was actually making some pretty decent money by then. After the last person I drove, I quit. Because that guy had called around to the different limousine services to find out where I was currently working, and called the service I was working for and requested me to come pick him up and be his driver. And he wasn't a pleasant person right off the bat. I started opening the door and he slams the car door out of my hand. I can open my own GDFing door. You get in the GDFing car and drive. No, it's guy's got a freaking attitude. I didn't know who he was. And so I'm walking around the back of the car. He gets in lockstep right behind me. He almost got his clock cleaned right there on the spot. But I controlled myself. I remember the thought going through my head, nah, he's just some dude having a bad day or something, you know. And, excuse me. He gets in the car. It was a Cadillac, a sedan, and a limousine, right behind me. I start the car and I said, "Are we ready to roll?" He goes, "Yeah, get the going." I said, "To DFW Airport, correct?" "You don't know where you're going?" I said, "Well, the run sheet, the message actually that I got says that, but I always like to check and verify just to make sure they were certain there wasn't some kind of a mix-up." He goes, "Yeah." I drop the car and drive and start taking off. And I tried to start kind of a pleasant exchange between us, you know. "So how's your day, sir?" And he's giving me this evil eye look in the mirror. I can see him in the rearview mirror, you know. He goes, "It's okay, I guess." I said, "You mind to ask, what is it you do?" He goes, "I make a lot of money." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to upset you or offend you." I said, "Oh, just be quiet." He goes, "Real estate. I do real estate." There was some other very short exchanges. Not going to get into all that right now. He goes, phone's ringing. Big kind of brick-sized cell phones back then in 1995. Except his phone. "Hey, Jeff, what's up?" Jeffrey, Jeffrey, shut the F up. You right, I raped her. I up that backside. And till she bled and made her like it. What's this little GDF and C word name anyway? And he says her name. I'm like, that's my daughter by choice's name. Then he asks where she's from. He goes, "Kiefer? What the Kiefer? Oh, Oklahoma. Figures. Only C word. In Oklahoma." Now I know for a fact he's talking about one of the three little girls that became my daughters by choice one night when I was consoling these three young girls after their babysitter had slashed her wrist right in front of these three little girls. The youngest being only about 6 months old. Oh, we'll just have her taken care of. I don't know. There's lots of people who do that kind of stuff. We'll just pay somebody and they'll have her taken care of. Heck, I bet my driver here probably take. What's your name, driver? Dan. I'm pretty pissed by now. I'm trying to control myself. You take care of things, Dan? I didn't respond to that. Just kept driving. And I started slowing the car down, pulling it over on the side of Highway 114 on the north side of Las Colinas, Texas there. Pulled it over on the shoulder in the middle of the highway next to the retaining wall that goes down the middle of the highway. And when I did, as I was slowing down, I reached over and opened my briefcase where my gun was. And I'd already come to the resolve. Oh, as I was slowing down, he goes, "What's going on?" I didn't say anything. And he starts waving a gold-plated Colt 1911, model 1911, 45 caliber semi-automatic pistol around. Says, "That's okay, I'm armed." And I stopped that car. I said, "That gun won't do you any good with me. If you don't believe me, point it at me and pull the damn trigger." "What? You want me to shoot you?" "I want you to try. Because I want you to know who I am." I was scared shitless about what I was about to do to him. I'd already gone through the resolve that if you kill this man, the state of Texas will almost assuredly give you the death sentence. But here's a man that's sitting directly behind me, 2 feet, 3 feet behind me, bragging about brutally raping a girl who at the time would have been 14, who I love more than life itself. Serious. I mean, I consider her to be my own daughter, mine, and her 2 little sisters. They were in absolute hysterics, in shock, after witnessing that girl the babysitter slash her wrists right in front of them. They crawled up in my lap. I've got these 3 little girls in my lap. Just, if you've ever seen a child who is in shock trauma from being traumatized, you know what I'm talking about. It's an horrific experience witnessing a child like that. The only thing I knew to do was, "Girls, girls, girls, calm down, please calm down. You need to help me pray for," the girl that had slashed her wrist. I said her name. Oh, by the way, the girl that slashed her wrist is fine, recovered fine, and is living a very good life now. But I said, "You need to help me pray for her. Just follow along with me, okay? Take a deep breath. Come on, quit crying. All 3 of you." And one by one, they kind of sucked it up and quit crying. I said, "Now help me pray. Just follow along with me. You don't need to say anything. Just in your head, follow along with me." And I started praying the Lord's Prayer. I had no idea what to pray for, you know. But I kind of fashioned the words for the situation with the girl that had cut her wrist. And when I finished, I opened my eyes, and all three of those little girls were sound asleep, laying against my chest. And I looked up, and I went silently. I said, "Wow, Lord. Wow, Lord. I guess I have 3 daughters, don't I?" And it was almost like an audible voice. It wasn't, of course. I don't hear voices unless somebody is physically actually talking to me or making noise, Never have. But that voice, that thought, you sure do. So anyway, when I got that car stopped, I reached up I grabbed the gear shift to put it in park and grabbed my gun, which had some really heavy custom loads in it that are designed to blow big holes in people and knock them off their feet. I carried it for security. That was it. And it was legal for me to carry it because in the state of Texas at that time, even back then, if you crossed county lines, I think it was more than twice in a 24-hour period, like if you were a truck driver or something, you could legally carry a loaded firearm in your vehicle. So I wasn't breaking any laws by doing it. And I'm a damn good shot. When I reached up and grabbed that gear shift to grab that gun and exterminate that man that was sitting 2 feet behind me, that same voice, that same thinking came over me. You can't put your wife through this. It's like, I even thought about it for a second or two after that. I dropped that car back in drive. I'd slipped it up to neutral while I was slowing down. Punched it and got back on the highway. And that guy behind me, "What's going on?" He starts waving that freaking gold-plated Colt around again. So I brake checked him. I was already up to about 65. Now I hit the brakes just as hard as I could. Put him in the floorboard. He said, "Okay, you got me." This is the most important part of this whole testimony. What I'm getting ready to tell you right now, people. This is absolutely the most important part, of this entire almost 45-minute talk. He goes, "Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me." And I looked up in the rearview mirror. And I watched his right eyeball, the pupil in his right eyeball, shift from a human pupil, round pupil, to the pupil of a reptile, a slit for 1 or 2 seconds, and then changed back. And I looked a little more, and he had this grotesque, like a jackal, smile on his face. And I laughed. Oh, that pissed him off. I said, "That's pretty good, man. Can you do that again?" I thought his head was going to freaking pop off. But I'm pulling into DFW Airport now, on the north side of DFW Airport. The private plane tarmac was at the northwest corner, the very northwest corner of DFW Airport back then. I don't know where it is now. And I could see his plane sitting over there. Great big jumbo jet with the name Trump on the side of it. That's who Donald John Trump really is.